If you look at this soundbite of her from the other day, I think we haven't seen this before. She's really losing it.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You can come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on, and I will fight on.
Okay. Fight on from prison? I don't know. I mean, this is what she's facing, right? She's got the mortgage fraud allegations that she's up against. And apparently, according to the FHA, she was lying on her application. This is like actually very serious because theoretically you could face up to 30 years in prison. I don't actually think she'd face that if she's convicted. I think that they'll go easy on her. But the point is, she's facing this, okay? This is like a big deal. 18 U.S.C. 1014, false statements to obtain a federally insured loan. 18 U.S.C. 1001 false statements to the government. We've seen people get in real trouble for this. And her own words are coming back to haunt her, if you would, because as this indictment moves forward, as voters shift the other way, she's out there with her own words effectively being thrown back in her face. Alina Habba did that the other day. I think Pam Bondi did as well. Here's her quote, okay? When she got the verdict against Donald Trump from the judge who was willing to, like, he actually increased whatever she wanted, call it 300 million. He's like, no, let's make it 450 or 468 or whatever. It's now over 500 million that Donald Trump is supposed to pay to New York. Quote, when powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of honest and hardworking people. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank or get a mortgage to buy a home. And if they did, the government would throw the book at them. Yeah, like 30 years, Letitia. They simply cannot be different rules for different people, she writes. Now Donald Trump is finally facing accountability for his lying, cheating, and staggering fraud, because no matter how rich or powerful you think you are, no one is above the law. Well, let's hear what the head of the FHA, William Pulte, is saying about Letitia and her respect for the law, shall we?
Recommended that the DOJ investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James over alleged mortgage fraud. The AG, Letitia James, has responded. We don't have the video, but here's the quote. This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia resident. And prior to that, I indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for enforcement of their investigation. Bill, do you know why she said she was a resident of Virginia on the power of attorney, if in fact she wasn't?
Well, I know that we are mortgage experts and we only refer things that we think are mortgage fraud, and we stand 100% behind the letter. I'll let the letter speak for itself. I do know, and I have seen some reports from that subject's criminal defense lawyer saying certain things. I'll leave it to the DOJ to correct various things. But again, when we see mortgage fraud, we are going to report it. When we see mortgage fraud, we are going to prosecute it within the confines.
And so that's exactly what they're doing, right? Piece of my mind pointing out that something I said before, the subject, he doesn't even want to say Letitia James's name. He's just like the subject. Okay, like this is not good. Again, not good for one Letitia James. FHA loans are insured by the federal government, so it's very different. And we talked about this before, but very, very different. And we're going to stay on this story because it's important, okay? It's important. She was trying to go after Donald Trump, saying that he had lied on his mortgage application with Deutsche Bank, private transaction, where Deutsche Bank is making a private decision, not owned by the government, right, on whether or not to loan him money. And they were using Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower as collateral. And so that's a decision that Deutsche Bank gets to make, okay, Letitia? He's not asking for federal money or federal funds or to have the loan guaranteed by the federal government like you were. And there's a distinction now. She's like, oh, no, you know what? It was just a clerical error, to which I say, listen, you're a lawyer, theoretically. And as a lawyer, you really ought to know better. Like, I kind of feel like there should be a little bit of a higher standard, right? Not to mention, not only are you a lawyer, you're the Attorney General of the state of New York, for goodness sake. So what are you doing lying on an FHA loan application? about your primary residence status. I mean, that is a federal offense. You should know that better than anyone, because at the time you were trying to go after Donald Trump for mortgage fraud, right? The FHA requires the property to be the borrower's primary residence within 60 days of closing. And the reason for that is why? Because people are less likely to default on a primary residence rather than a secondary residence. If she has all these homes and it's a secondary residence, then the government is a little bit more nervous about actually insuring that. And so there was an advantage to her putting that down. But she's like, no, nothing to see. This is the house. This is the house in Norfolk, Virginia, where it all began, shall we say. Actually, no, it began probably with this brownstone in New York. So now the state government in New York is looking into this one because she's out there saying she's got 4 levels instead of 5 levels in her unit building, the brownstone in New York. And guess what? Again, there's a federal incentive in terms of the money you get to do that. On top of which, there was an incentive apparently for her to put her name down as her dad's wife back in 1983. I mean, we're going way back, but what it shows is a pattern of behavior that is very concerning. She said she was her father's wife back in 83 so that they could buy this little thing together. And Stephen Miller is adding it all up. And listen, I'm with him on this. You can't just keep lying on all these applications and then go after the former president of the United States to the tune of $500 million and expect that like no one's going to notice your previous history doing, well, gosh darn it, exactly what you're accusing him of.
Letitia James says the allegations against her are nothing more than a revenge tour by the Trump administration. What's your response?
My response is that Letitia James is one of the most corrupt, shameless individuals ever to hold public office. She's guilty not only of those crimes, but of countless more crimes by using and abusing her public office to try to persecute an innocent man, depriving him of his rights, engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct our election, and to overthrow our democratic processes and procedures. She is guilty of multiple significant serial criminal violations.
Don Baca pointing out, you know what? You're responsible for whatever you're putting on the application. Like you can't claim your innocence because of stupidity, okay? Like you just can't. Here it is. Take a good look there. I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my, quote, principal residence. They're all circled in red. Well, it wasn't ever going to be your principal residence, again, because you were the Attorney General of New York, not the Attorney General of Virginia. Oh, just a clerical error. They're just trying to go after me. It's nothing, she tells us.
As you know, we filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump and his family. We secured $454 million judgment against him, which is on appeal. The case is on appeal. I have no idea when that case will be decided. This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, but prior to that, I had indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. And in the mortgage application, I indicated that I would not live in Virginia and I was not a resident. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for.
Okay, so why did you do it then? Again, knowing that you're a lawyer and that you're the Attorney General. And what about all the other stuff? Okay, like, again, we are seeing a pattern and the pattern is problematic. She's trying to say it's retribution. I don't think so. But here, she says the reason this is an issue is because Donald Trump wants to get me. Donald Trump's looking at this, I think, similar to Bill Pulte, and he's saying, this is not good for you, honey bunny.
Your thoughts on Letitia James? Director Pulte, according to him, Letitia James says that the alleged mortgage fraud was simply a mistake. I want to get your thoughts on that. She put down that her father was her husband in order, and this is very similar to, I guess, the false attacks they have on here.
Well, I don't know what it is currently, but Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State, it seemed, I'm not involved in that at all. I know it's being handled by various groups, I guess, but it's major fraud. mortgage documents and fraudulent everything. I think she said the father was her husband, which she had to have a husband, so she chose her father, and she put it down. And she had didn't she sign in Virginia? Yet she said she lived in Virginia. Yet she's the New York State Attorney General. She did that for tax reasons, so she could take advantage of taxes. And she had the wrong number of units. She had a much different number, which wouldn't have allowed her to qualify and scam the government. So I don't know. I think she's very bad for New York, but I really don't know too much about it. But I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. Yes.
So again, she's going to go back to that and say, well, he's just targeting me because I went after him. But I'll tell you, this is interesting. Voters aren't really buying it in the state of New York. Big articles. We've talked about a few of them, but this is new here. They're talking about in the City Journal, her campaign being totally on the ropes. Voters aren't buying this. They're not interested in the Equinox thing that she just did. They don't see that as a win for them. And you go out throughout the state of New York and you actually see a very different environment than you do in New York City. And I know this, I've traveled throughout Western New York, actually. I have family from there and I've lived in New York City. So I get this sort of stark difference. And I think, as you heard Joe Scarborough say earlier, what you're starting to see is a lot of these liberal places, historically liberal places, are starting to change. You look at these numbers right there, right? Attorney General Letitia James. Everybody's talking about Chuck Schumer being under fire. Everybody's talking about this. By the way, John Luna, thank you. Thank you so much. My goodness, you guys are just insanely generous today. I really appreciate it. He loves the stream. And Sherry Gates, I'm looking for Sherry here. I'm just trying to see if I can see her. Thank you again. So appreciate it. I don't know. Look at this. Look at how weird this is. If you look, guys, I'm trying to put John's statement on. That's going to have to be some work in the downtime of the Trish Regan show. We got to figure out how to get those comments on without them being all over the screen like that. Anyway, you see these numbers, right? Okay. 40% favorable, 33% unfavorable. Voters are over her. This is a big deal. Part of it is due to some of the immigration issues. CBS News actually just came out with a poll on this one, and overwhelmingly, it's very interesting, especially in light of some of the things that we're seeing happen in LA. Just unfortunate, tragic stuff. By the way, the federal government has a lot of power, right? Have we not talked about that at length? Constitutionally speaking, supremacy clause, naturalization, you name it, the commerce clause. And so I suspect that they're Karen Bass and Gavin, they're really in for some challenging times out in Los Angeles. But if you look at New York, for example, you're seeing a similar kind of feeling about this 79% backing the deportation of immigrants that have been convicted of a crime. And Letitia's not there. Like, that is not what she stands for. So how is she going to get elected in this kind of environment? I think that there's a real chance she doesn't. On top of which, she's out there spouting about Cuomo. She hates Andrew Cuomo. I don't like him either, but now I'm like, maybe he's not all that bad if Letitia despises him so much. This article appearing in The Sun within the last week, Letitia James warns against Andrew Cuomo's run for president. Oh, not just mayor. He might be actually thinking real aspirationally. We'll see. I don't think he's going to get too far. But nonetheless, what you're seeing overall here is this momentum against her. Even colleagues coming out now and turning on Letitia James. This article making the rounds, I believe this is in Free Beacon this week, with colleagues saying that she abused her power. Why do I not disagree with that possibly being true? I mean, we know she abused her power vis-a-vis what she did with Donald Trump. This is a separate story altogether, but this is why Elise Stefanik has said, look, we need to investigate this. She was out there trying to muscle her way into a situation for political purposes. We've seen over and over again that even now the media is coming out against her, with New York Magazine saying this was sort of nuts. She inexplicably chose to use the resources of her public office to respond to the investigation, right? So she's using the $10 million that she's going to get for this legal fund. I don't think she's going to get it because the GOP is like, no way. On top of which, she was out there making wildly inappropriate out-of-court statements that would ordinarily get a prosecutor fired. I mean, she was going after family members, the New York Magazine writes, family members, and trying to say she was going to take them down too, branding them as liars while they were testifying. And I remember Eric being so frustrated about this. He came on this show and spoke about it, and then he was on Newsmax. Let's listen in.
You have a corrupt attorney general who literally ran on the campaign promise of taking down my father. She goes, I'm going to go after Donald. I'm going to take down his family. I'm going to go after his children. I'm going to get, her exact quote, I'm going to get to the office of attorney general every day. I'm going to sue Donald Trump, and then I'm going to go home. I mean, she'd fundraise off of this nonsense. Like, this was her entire platform going after right after my father. Then obviously she gets into office and she does exactly that. And you've got a crooked court and everything else. But actually, I think we're making a breakthrough with the judge. I think they're trying to realize there are no victims. First of all, my father's statements are undervalued, not overvalued. Second of all, she's going after banks. She's trying to protect banks that made hundreds of millions of dollars with Trump, meaning there were no aggrieved party. There were no defaults. There were no
you guys made
loan
money.
covenants.
You guys made money. That's why
we'd borrow money.
Yeah.
Go do a great project. Be very successful.
Jobs and homes.
Pay a tremendous amount of interest. And then pay the banks back in full. Like, we never had so much as a default. No one. So what we're saying, they're saying, is there a victim in this? I mean, you're suing us and there's no victim, but Carla, it's nonsense. The DOJ has told Letitia James to make my father's life hell, to keep him tied up in a courtroom, to cost him tens and tens of millions of dollars, to distract him.
Yeah.
He actually wasn't making progress at the time. You thought he was making progress. No, you didn't make any progress, unfortunately, because you had a very biased judge. And you stack those two things up against Donald Trump, and it was significant. I mean, they were trying to bankrupt him. Let's face it, they wanted him in jail. They got the mugshot, which now he put right outside the Oval Office. That's great, right? And they wanted to bankrupt him to the point where they wanted to take his assets. Letitia James said it, ironically, on, wait for it, ABC News, which is facing the SEC investigation, which just had to suspend its reporter for his hateful comments on social media.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm wondering if you might have to sell a few of your assets, right, Letitia? I wonder how much you can get for this house. You might need the money. I mean, you may just, because otherwise you're facing 30 years, right? And you get that expensive attorney that used to work for Hunter Biden. He's got to cost plenty. You're facing this. If you can't get the money to pay him, think he'll take you on pro bono? I'm not sure he's going to take you on pro bono. I really don't. And you're facing a lot of trouble. A lot, shall we say, right about now. You know who else is facing trouble? What is it? Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams is in huge trouble. Her party doesn't like her, kind of like Letitia right now. Party doesn't like her. And now, it turns out there's another nonprofit that is in a bit of hot water. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already. It's really, really important. We are climbing. Look at that. We were in top 100 last week. And I'm hoping we get to 1 million subs. I'm really hoping. This summer, right? Let's do it, guys. Let's do it. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Quick shout out to one of our sponsors before I get to the Stacey Abrams story, patriotmobile.com/Trish. Call 972-PATRIOT to join us at Patriot Mobile today. You get a free month for those that are switching over. And guess what? You get to keep your cell phone number, all that good stuff. Wonderful company that supports patriots like you, like me, like this show. Just a great company, looking out for veterans, looking out for our Constitution. So why not put your money where your mouth is, right? When you think of all the places where you can spend money, and certainly you do on your cell phone each month, this one actually cares about some of the same things you do. And that's why we like them. And we appreciate all their sponsorship here on the show. So show them a little love. Go to patriotmobile.com/Trish. Sign up, call them 972-PATRIOT today.